We'll be starting to talk about chapter 14 and 15. The main focus of these two chapters is the Renaissance and the Reformation. This is Europe in the late medieval times, and this first section focuses on a revival of learning and culture. We start off with the growth of towns and the rise of the middle class, leading to or encouraging the revival of learning, as did the expansion of trade. As people went out into other areas, new ideas were brought forth as they were trading these items, and they exchanged ideas, ways of doing things. This is about the 11 to 1200s. Also, Latin was the language that was used by European scholars at this time, and that trade that I had mentioned brought them into contact with the Byzantine and Muslim empires. Young people studied with scholars. They usually ended up being monks or priests. These meetings developed into universities as we know them today, or at least on the path to becoming those universities. One of the first was located at Bologna in Italy. This one was right around the year 1000. And when we look at the word curriculum, it is a course of study. So today, when I prepare for world history or geography, I can look up the Utah State core curriculum under social studies, and it will tell me what those people feel like are the most important things that should be taught and brought out in a particular course. So that is our curriculum, the state core curriculum. However, despite this revival of learning that went on, so I've got these fancy, I think these are some of the first slides I made, so got all these little fancy transitions that went on. So despite that revival of learning, most people in the Middle Ages still could not read or write, meaning they were illiterate. Latin was also the language used by the church, and again, when we say the church, we're talking about the Roman Catholic Church at this time. Romance languages came from Latin, and a vernacular is a local language. So this was the language of Romans, and Germanic was the other form. We talk a lot about languages in geography and a little bit here in world history. I always say, as a second language, English is pretty hard to learn. If you know English, then picking up Spanish, Italian, French, Romanian, and Portuguese would be fairly easy, in my opinion. Troubadours were the poet-musicians that were located at the castles and courts in Europe. To some extent, they were the people who were the entertainers. Geoffrey Chaucer was an English poet who wrote the Canterbury Tales. I remember in the movie A Knight's Tale. It's been a long time since I've seen that movie, but apparently they were playing cards and he ended up betting his clothing or something. Anyway, he lost it. So in the movie, he's found along the roadside just wandering naked. Anyway, his story and his work strongly influenced the development of our modern English language as we know it today. Artists of the Middle Ages created works to show their religious faith and devotion. Besides what they created these works for, there was another kind of positive side effect of these works of art, and that is that they help the illiterate people to learn the Bible stories. So if you could see a picture, maybe a stained glass window, something like that, you could see a message or see what the story was about without having to read the story. So that was a positive thing about a lot of this artwork at the time. There were two important styles of architecture that developed in the Middle Ages. We have Romanesque and Gothic. Of course, Romanesque came first, and you can see an example of that here, and then the Gothic over here, represented by the Gothic cathedral. So Romanesque was the earlier style. They had a rounded arch. You see these archways used here in various places. And a lot of these adapted from Roman architecture. You can see inside the building, very heavy walls, the arch, dome also depicted in there, but not very much width in between the walls. Not as many people that could attend a service there. But as far as the Gothic then, this was the newer style, more recent, and they used pointed arches, and outside walls were supported by flying buttresses because they were taller and less massive. So as the ceilings became much heavier with the use of stone and then concrete over that, there was a lot of weight, and they wanted to open up the space to have stained glass windows and allow more light in, but they had to still support those heavy ceilings, and the walls as they were couldn't do that. And so they had to, I guess on the next picture I do have some images of the flying buttresses. But what they did is they took these supports and they moved them outside of the walls, and then had these stone arms that would attach to them, and that would support the wall, so that heavy weight wouldn't push down and cause the building to fall. It had somewhere to push that weight against the flying buttress. So you can see in this picture, so these columns here, okay, those are the flying buttresses. There's some of them as much as 2 million pounds, very heavy, and then you have these fine stone arms that would come from the side of the building out to the buttress. And then inside you could have these large open areas filled with stained glass. And that concludes our page one. I believe this cathedral here actually was one that was being built, and then part of it collapsed. They didn't finish the building, they didn't tear it down, they just left the part that was built, and I believe still used today, but not as large as some of the cathedrals. Okay, thank you.